This presentation considers the Dennaro family and how family systems approach may be utilized to engage with them. Family system theory describes families as complex and interconnected systems in which each member influences the others. It considers how families can create and adapt to stress and challenges. It uses 8 interlocking concepts. Differentiation of self. The ability of family members to maintain their sense of self outside of the family. Family closeness or fusion can increase a sense of harmony and duty towards one another, but can also become harmful when the person sees their role and duties to the family as more important than their sense of personal identity. In triangles, relationships between two people will inevitably experience tension. Triangulation involves a third person to mediate or take sides when tension occurs. However, it's also possible that the conflicting parties will target the newcomer, preventing conflict resolution. The nuclear family emotional system. To cope with stress, families fall into predictable methods based on generational patterns. These include distancing, which may be complete avoidance or physical closeness, but avoidance of difficult topics. Couples may be distant with each other or fused past what is healthy. This can result in them seeing the other's emotional state as their own responsibility, or them seeing conflict as a personal attack. Fixation on the disabled individual may create a feedback loop of stress that increases anxiety felt by the disabled person and thus feeds back to all parties. The family projection process. The emotional issues of the family member or members may be passed on to others in a feedback loop as is just raised. Emotional cutoff can be an unhealthy instance of distancing in which a family member distances themselves physically and or emotionally from others due to extreme stress or anxiety. The multi-generational transmission process is like the family projection process but considers the way maturity and emotional processing is passed on a generational scale. Sibling positioning. How birth order affects the children in a family and their relationships to each other. It is supposed that the oldest or functional eldest takes on more responsibility and emotional burden than younger children. The societal emotional process, how the anxiety and relationships generated within the family impact their experiences in the community and society. Who make up the Dennaro family? Katerina is the mother. She seems to be emotionally exhausted and will need support. She left work to care for Stefano full-time and misses the social engagement it brought her. Pietro is the father. He's divorced and lives living in Port Augusta. Stefano is 17 years old and has Fragile X syndrome. Which can involve intellectual disability, communication and coordination difficulties, sensory sensitivity, anxiety, autism, ADHD, mood disorders, physical symptoms such as vision or hearing loss, seizures, and weakening of the muscles and joints. Tina, who is 14 and has taken on significant responsibilities. Uncle Warrawong, an Aboriginal Narrowcoo man and close family friend who has moved with them to Adelaide after experiencing domestic violence. There's also a grandmother and friend of Warrawong. While they're not described in depth, Katerina's mother and a friend of Warrawong are staying with the family at the time of the visit. Due to limited information, I assume that Warrawong's friend isn't a permanent resident of the household. Similarly, Katerina's mother could be living with them or staying temporarily. Caring for her mother may be another source of stress for Katerina, however this is unconfirmed. Katerina is tired and frantic, emotionally exhausted, and feels that by relying on Tina as much as she does, and the lack of support given to Stefano at school, she is failing both her children. She also feels abandoned as her requests for help are being ignored. Her stress and anxiety, while valid, will contribute to the family's overall stress and may increase anxiety and feelings of helplessness in the kids due to family projection and multi-generational transmission processes. Her high expectations of herself to manage the family's issues may also result in an unhealthy level of fusion due to struggling to self-differentiate. She's also feeling exhausted and overwhelmed by everyday care tasks and concerns for Stefano's future. Uncle Warrawong seems to want to help Stefano and the family and has been advocating for him at school. It would be beneficial to work with him to ensure he has the proper tools and information to effectively advocate, and that he's also able to take care of himself due to his previous traumatic experiences. While he is a trauma survivor, if he wishes to help Stefano, it could be considered condescending to prevent him from doing so. It's important that Katerina understand that helping is something Uncle Warrawong wants to do, not something he considers an undue burden, to help her accept his aid. Pietro has an unclear level of involvement. However, according to Katerina, his neglect of his own health and a lack of acknowledgement of how difficult it is to raise a disabled child was a cause of stress for the family and lasting frustration for her post-divorce. The refusal to engage and eventual divorce could be called emotional cutoff, which can be a defense mechanism in the face of extreme emotional difficulty and a toxic level of conflict in the nuclear family emotional system. Tina is helpful, which Katerina feels she cannot express adequate gratitude for, and it will be important to make sure that Tina can still feel that she has normal teenage experiences alongside her caring responsibilities to prevent burnout or high amounts of stress she has taken on as the functional eldest and can have a positive relationship with her family, as is described in sibling positioning. Relationships within the family are stressed. Katerina's anxiety about Tina taking on too many responsibilities and feeling underappreciated. Uncle Rorong's desire to help despite Katerina's reluctance to accept. Stefano's support needs contributing to burnout. And between Katerina and Pietra, tension has already led to emotional cutoff and divorce. Triangulation may be helpful to mediate this, however, and create balance, but caution should be used to prevent triangulation resulting in blame rather than resolution. We aren't told much about Stefano's personal goals, so it's vital to investigate his desires alongside his family's. We know his care needs are extensive and his needs aren't being met in school. Katerina is also worried about his future living situation, employment, money management, and ability to form strong relationships. This anxiety could be passed through triangulation, projection, and transmission to Stefano, who could be experiencing this anxiety and have a limited vision of his future as a result. These concerns will impact Stefano's future role in society, which is part of the societal emotional process, as will be the support Stefano receives to meet future goals and build capacity. Despite loving one another, the family cannot cope with the current level of stress. The lack of support at school suggests that the education system and advocacy have failed them so far. The complaint to my workplace further suggesting they haven't received adequate help. The short-term relief may be to speak with the other residents in the house and ask them if they are willing and able to do more around the household upkeep to reduce the burden on Katerina and Tina. As a developmental educator, using the family system theory can involve reducing blame, which can be directed at the person with disability, conflict, or at oneself, increasing the ability of the family to use self-differentiation and emotional intelligence. My role isn't to fix issues faced by the family, but to help them arrive in a place where they can be supported to do this for themselves. Communication is central to respect. Communication is the process of thought, is the expression of thoughts, feelings, and ideas. This can be verbal and non-verbal. In good communication, the result is that all involved parties gain a shared understanding of what is being expressed and each other. Communication skills include active listening. Consider what is being said and how, what's being omitted, the person's body language. Ask them relevant questions and, when appropriate, reflect back what they have said to them to ensure and demonstrate mutual understanding. Non-verbal communication, such as body language, can be used to understand what's being said, but can also be used to convey attention. Facial expressions, eye contact, nodding, and gestures can encourage a person to consider speaking. Attentive silence can help the person gather their thoughts and share complex ideas, or encourage them to continue. How you present yourself will also create a sense that you are ready to help. Emotional intelligence focuses on understanding the feelings of yourself and others. While emotional impact is inevitable, professionalism is important. Show the appropriate amount of emotion to ensure the family knows you care and understand, but don't center your feelings in the conversation. Managing the emotions of others in a professional setting may be to help a distressed person calm down, diffuse unhealthy tension. While emotional awareness and management is important, it's equally important to remember that I'm not a trained counselor or therapist. Culture and considerations work with other stated communication tools to establish a respectful relationship. With both Italian and First Nation cultural considerations, I'll need to be aware of possible barriers that may impact understanding, advocacy, and accessing services. I'll try to mirror observed behavior, respect differences, and be patient in learning how to best communicate with them. I will use culturally safe, affirming practices such as community-centered, trauma-informed listening-first approaches. I should investigate if any resources or community supports are available to the family based on their respective statuses. Empathy and understanding will also help build rapport. The family is tired and stressed, needing help. Demonstrating willingness to learn, to put in the work, and taking a holistic approach to the family and having a solutions-focused mindset can help establish trust. It's important to be aware of my own biases and not let them impact my work. People with disabilities have been historically oppressed with decisions made for them, so while I will have opinions, they should not be preferred over alternatives. My role is to support Stefano and his family to collectively decide what is right for them and implement changes. The family feel unheard, so it will be important that I work with them to ensure that they can self-advocate. It is also important that when working with me, they feel their needs are valid and respected. I will avoid making assumptions about the functional capacity of the family, their goals, and their desires. Self-awareness will help me in this process. In addition to examining my own biases, self-reflection will help me in constantly improve. I should be mindful that my focus is on the client, and self-awareness will help me to be more aware of the needs of others. My colleague became frustrated while working with the family. It is important that I practice emotional intelligence. If I do find myself struggling with frustration, stress, or distress, I should take measures to protect my mental health. These include maintaining emotional honesty during debriefing to prevent my feelings from festering, maintaining a good relationship with my colleagues, and taking care of myself. Family system theory outlines 8 concepts that help us understand how a family unit creates and reduces stress for its members. Evaluating the nuances of the family dynamics using these concepts will help me effect change for Stefano. My involvement is time limited, so my role is to help the family help themselves by rethinking their approaches. Stefano needs a functional family supported in turn by other social networks. It will be important to maintain a holistic, solution-oriented mindset throughout this process.